Hello, everybody. Today, I'm talking to Jessica Drake Thomas. We're going to talk about her first full-length book. She had a chapbook, but this is the first book. Burials. Look at that beautiful cover by Olivia Kroom. So it's a collection of gothic dark poetry. I'll read the back of her description here. What is buried can return. Those who are dead can still speak. A witch can be burned, but not silenced. When the abattoir is opened, the dead will rise. Burials is the narrative of those whose voices have been taken away. Murdered women, witches, ghosts. It's about speaking one's truth and using magic to heal or to banish, even from beyond the grave. And I'll read Jessica's bio really quick. Jessica Drake Thomas is a poet, fiction writer, book reviewer, and PhD student. She holds college degrees from Tulane, Emerson, and the University of Arizona. She is the author of Burials and chapbook Possession, Dancing Girl Press. She is the Best of the Net and Riesling Award nominee. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Is this the first time we've talked? I feel like we had talked before. Oh no, you did. Yeah, I saw that's when I first saw you.
Yeah.
You did the Zoom reading.
The reading, yeah.
We almost met in person, but it didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Honestly, you didn't miss too much. It wasn't, not that many people came. It was kind of a small turnout. That was kind of, it was, I mean, that everybody was there was great. And the people that were there were very into it. And our reading was really fun and everything. But yeah, if you've been kicking yourself over that, don't sweat it. So how's it going? You're in Texas right now, right?
I am in Texas. I'm supposed to be in Wisconsin right now. I started a PhD program this fall. But now I'm doing it all remotely. So I'm a little bit glad. I'm afraid of the winters. The winters here are not that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not supposed to be here.
What's the PhD?
In creative writing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What are you working on? Can you talk about what you're working on?
Right now, I'm getting an idea for my next book. I had to write a poem for class, and I wrote it about an object from a horror movie. And so now I think I'm going to be writing a book about objects from horror movies.
Nice.
The first poem is in the others, they find this book and it's filled with postmortem photographs. And I wrote a piece about that book and like what that book meant for me. So I'm really excited about that. Sat down and wrote like a list of all the movies that I want to go find items from. And so.
Nice. Have you seen that show, Cursed Films?
I saw a show about cursed objects, but I don't think I've seen the one about cursed films.
Yeah, it's on. I think it's on Shudder. Okay. Yeah, each episode is about a different movie. So one, I need to catch up on it. I only saw the first like 3, but they do The Exorcist and some other ones that were famously cursed. The shoots, just horrible things kept happening, and it's interesting when it's with a movie like The Exorcist, where like they're dealing with these demonic energies in the movie, and then there's just all this horrible luck, like somebody, like there was a plane, like somebody got lightning struck their plane on the way to the shoot, like all these awful things happened, and it makes you wonder, but it's cool how they do the show, because they'll have skeptics who are like, well, that's just coincidences, a bunch of really crazy coincidences, and then they'll also have like witches and different, mystics or paranormal investigators and stuff like that, that'll be like, no, this was really like, and then they'll have the actors and the people involved talking about the experience. So it's really fascinating.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
I'll recommend it for sure. So tell me, what was your inspiration for this book? Where did this come out of?
Uh, I'm trying to think. I started writing it in 2017. And I guess it was a lot about what I was reading at the time. I was reading a lot of true crime stuff. Read Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles. And it all just kind of like, I just started writing pieces. I wasn't planning to write a book. I hadn't written anything in about 3 years after I finished my MFA. And so I thought I was just never going to write anything. And then it started coming to me. The first poem that I wrote was Banshee, and it just
I
kind
love that one.
of nowhere. I just wrote that down. I'd been listening to Zombie by the Cranberries on repeat, and I didn't know why. But then I just sat down and wrote that one. And then after that, I wrote it in like about 6 months, the whole book. And then I spent the next year or so revising. So it just kind of came together. It was like everything that I was reading or watching at the time kind of went into the book.
Mm-hmm.
It just all tied together really well.
Yeah, I think something that I loved about it when we first saw this in our submission box was it has a really wonderful balance between a lot of traditional kinds of horror imagery, as says on the back, witches, ghosts, murder women, um, but it's so it really goes deep into personal things, and it deals a lot with feelings that you get when you're like in a bad relationship, and it's almost like, you know the toxicity of various relationships and interactions, and how they will make you feel dead, and they'll make you feel
Yeah.
dehumanized. And I just thought it was so beautiful and powerful how you used all this horror imagery to embody something that is so personal, hard to talk about, and raw and relatable.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going through that at the time. I had a relationship that just, it didn't work out. And then the person was like so toxic. And then I had to see him like every day because he was in the program that I was in. And it was just a situation that just, I couldn't get out of, I felt like. Because normally I just burn bridges. I get out and I stay away from those people, but I couldn't. So it just kept like, it was like every day I had to go see that person. And I felt like I couldn't heal. And so I turned to my poetry to kind of heal myself.
Yeah, I really relate to that. I I I wrote poetry before I wrote anything else, and it was always kind of, the way to cope with the highs and the lows
Yeah.
of those things that you just don't even know how to process, and you feel too ashamed to talk to anybody about it sometimes, and you don't even know how to find the words for it. And that's the amazing thing.
Yeah.
Art is it gives you the words, it gives you the metaphors, it gives you a safe way to talk about things without actually like disclosing actual details.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually I'm going to read Banshee, if you don't
Okay.
mind. I love this one, and it'd be cool if you read one too at some
Sure.
point during this thing.
Yeah.
Banshee. When I awoke, it was dark. I could hear nothing. I could see nothing. Just shadow and gray light, filled with the scent of smoke, bruised petals, sick, sweet. My limbs locked in paralysis, wrapped in embrace of an iron coffin. I called out, "Darling, I think I'm burning from the inside out." Golden skin splitting, turning to ash, flakes glittering, swirling on dry, crackling air. There was nothing, no response. Once I was a small child, chasing ghost trains in the mist. By the way, that's like one of my favorite lines in here. I don't know why. It really calls up a mental image. The ground damp beneath my bare feet as rain slipped down, the blue leaves of the hyacinths I carried. In the tree beside me, hanging from the branches like witches' fingers, frayed ropes and the 9 of swords danced in the wind. A man wearing a coat, like the silence behind the stars, stepped around the witch tree, shot me in the cheek. I watched my blood sink into the ground. Death wrapped itself about me, a wine-dark stain, and birds flew out of the tree, susurrations of wings beating like my slowing pulse. Here I am, the dead returned, to walk the burned earth, howling up at the slice of a moon, thin like a knife. When I awoke, I screamed my name into the void, and something ancient answered, breath scented with grave dirt. It's so fun. I love reading this out. Like, this stuff is just so fun. It's like language that like fills your mouth. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. For this one, especially when I was editing it, I would just read it aloud to myself, like over and over again, and just go, nope, that's not working. And yeah,
it's the best way to know, honestly.
love it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's like that's the cool thing about poetry versus prose. I'm reading at readings, it's a lot more fun to read poetry. I've found in reading prose, it's hard when you're like, you want to read a book or a story, like you got to figure out what section you're going to read, and if you need to give people backstory or something like that. Like for a poem, nobody needs to know anything except for what they're hearing right in that moment.
Yeah.
Music carries it. So there was a poem in here that is about an incident. You have notes at the end. Bella and the Witch Elm. So it's based on the occurrences in Hagley Wood in 1943. See what you have in here for the notes. In 1943, the skeleton of a woman was found in a tree by a group of young boys. Afterward, graffiti began appearing all around the town, reading, "Who put Bella in the witch elm?" The woman is theorized to be a spy, a prostitute, or even the victim of an occult ritual by gypsies. So far, no one has come forward with any definitive information on her murder. There are also theories that the graffiti artist was her killer. That's pretty weird. So tell me about this. I've never heard of it.
So it's a true crime poem. I read the story about Bella in several articles, and I just find it completely fascinating. Just that they don't know what happened, and like it's so weird how she was found and where she was found, and then just the fact that the graffiti, like who put Bella in the witch elm, was found all around the town in like chalk. And I feel like there's more to the story that we're never going to know, just because so much time has passed by now.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's become more of a skeleton and she's not really thought of as a person anymore. Like she's just this big mystery. And I felt like connected to her in a way. Just as another woman, as a person. And I think that's like the most tragic thing about it is she was a person and now she's more thought of as, you know, this corpse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, It's kind of the whole Laura Palmer thing,
A
where
little bit, yeah.
uh, we think of her as this, as her death, and then it's all a reverse story.
Yeah.
Do you think the person writing the graffiti could have been the murderer?
It it could be. That's I come from a family who we talk about serial killer pathology over dinner. So that
Uh,
could be her killer. He certainly might have like stayed around in the area after her death and then waited for her to be found. That's something that somebody would do, but also like it's just so weird because it gives her a name.
yeah, that is
Like they
weird.
named her.
Wait, so people didn't know her name?
No, she's a Jane Doe. No name, no identification. Bella comes from the graffiti.
That's a little sketchy.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I mean that is pretty common for a killer to want some sort of um, acknowledgement
Yeah.
without a similarity between killers and poets. You want to say your piece, but you don't want anybody to know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Right.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, would you like to read it?
Bella? Absolutely.
Cool.
Bella and the Witch Elm. This is based on the occurrences in Hagley Wood in 1943. 4 boys found her on a Sunday morning playing King Arthur's Court. Lancelot hit the tree with a stick sword. Her jaw fell out of a crack in the old elm tree, its trunk squat and ancient. Her weathered skull, a bird's nest still firmly tucked like a crown within her brunette hair, tumbled out next, clunking grimly on the ground beside the scattered bones of her left hand. Gawain screamed, and the king turned pale, while Lancelot and Percival turned and ran. The words, like wildfire, began to appear on the schoolyard's brick wall, and the dumpster behind the grocery store, emblazoned across the hermit's house. He might have done it himself sometime in the night. The Witchbury Church's sign and the cemetery's lone obelisk in white chalk. Who put Bella in the witch elm? Who put Bella in the witch tree? The bones and flesh of the tree have enveloped Bella, fingers closing in a fist. Bella, who put you here? Speak. Will you speak? Her jawbone detached, hanging, mouth a slack-jawed scream as her teeth fall out. The faded taffeta knotted beneath her chin, the only bit left holding it in, lets go of its secrets. In the gloom, a dry whisper as green-wick twigs sprout from her pug-like nose and weeds blossom from her eye socket. I don't want anyone to see me like this. There's a nakedness, an honesty found only in death that the living can't respect. I can't speak for myself, so they all speak of me, breath from their lungs, dust from the chalk. I can see it again, the cycle where people start to fail me. Then silence as woman becomes tree, tree becomes woman, woman becomes skeleton, skeleton becomes bones, ponderous and alone, until the police come and wrestle her from the grave to poke and pry apart what's left. Try to piece together a woman, a corpse that's already half dust, a few navy blue striped rags with the tags cut out, peach taffeta underthings, battered shoes, a fake wedding ring, and silence. Who put Bella here? Rumors ebb and die. Bella sits in a box at the morgue, dreaming of the shelter of trees and a winter morning when the stars faded. I remember, she says, to no one for who listens to a pile of bones. I remember when I had 2 lips, a tongue, skin, breasts, thighs, to-do lists, long drives, wine, warm blankets. I, too, experienced hunger, desire. I had a voice.
Beautiful. So what do you think makes you feel like you wanted to be the voice of the voiceless?
Yeah, it just kind of started coming to me. And sometimes it kind of felt like it was coming from outside of me, which was really weird about that piece. But it just kind of came together, and I think I wrote this down in one sitting.
How do you feel it was coming outside yourself? In what way?
It, I kind of sometimes feel like voices are coming from the out, like it was coming to me and I just wrote it down and it came together. It didn't really feel like I knew it wasn't my voice that was saying it, but um yeah, I don't know how to explain it exactly.
Um, have you ever actively tried to channel, or is it just like something that kind of happens?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I've actively tried channeling. Sometimes it comes to me, but there's yeah.
Have you done what kind of exercises have you done to try to channel?
Nothing formal. I don't really know too much about it. Um, I've definitely had experiences with that sort of thing. Um,
So it just happens,
mhm,
and it feels different than
Me.
what?
Um, it tends to find me.
Yeah. So it feels, but like there's something that feels different than
Yes, for
what
sure.
you're writing. So how would you pinpoint like what is that feeling of it being different?
Well, I know my voice. I know what I sound like. Um,
Hmm.
and when I was writing Bella and the Witch Elm, it felt like somebody else's voice.
I love that. That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of like witch imagery and symbolism. You have some
Yes.
spells, some curses.
Yeah.
How much of that is based on actual like hexes you've done or things like that?
All of them. um, I wanted to use actual spells. So when I was writing this, I was reading a lot of spell books and experimenting with creating my own as well. And the second I read a spell book, I was like, oh my God, it's poetry. I can do this.
Hmm.
Um, so it was a lot of fun.
When did you start doing? How long have you been like spell casting?
Started 2016, I believe.
How effective would you say are your spells?
They're pretty effective, yes.
Um, yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of like conversation about the moral uh, areas, I guess, of hexing.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people that feel that it's there's the whole threefold law. You'll get it back three times, and it's just super unethical to use your magic to harm anyone, even if they deserve it, which makes no sense to me. But um, the way I think it's like it's karma. So if you do make a bad judgment call and
mhm,
send something to someone that does not actually deserve it and it was your fault, you will pay for that. But if they did deserve it, then and they do receive the curse, that's not you cursing them. That's the universe saying, yes, that's what's going to happen. Like that's out of your hands almost. I mean, yes, you did cast the spell, but you witches are not all powerful. You need the help.
right.
You need outside help to make all your stuff manifest. You can't just do it through your will alone. So if it was not meant to be, it wouldn't even happen. So that's how I think of it morally. But I've rarely done it. Obviously it's not a fun thing to do. It's not fun to be at a point where you feel that hurt and disempowered and damaged, that you feel like the only way to get whatever they have, like their spell on you, to get it off, that you have to do that. But
Yeah.
I have also cursed some exes, and it's really actually one. I think I just did. I don't know, but it's kind of frightening how effective it is, and how it's not necessarily like, you don't know how it's going to unfold, what is actually going to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was one guy that I did a hex on, and well, did a whatever, yeah, and he ended up breaking several bones, um, which was like, whoa. Actually, that tends to be what happens to people that displease me. Um, since I was a little girl, before I even knew how to cast spells or what that even was or anything, whenever there was like a girl in school that was like really being horrible to me, if it really got to a point where I really felt really bad, and I would hit that emotional moment, then about a week later or a month later, she would have a broken bone. And it was very strange. And after it happened 3 times, I was like, it happened like once in grammar school, it happened once in middle school, once in high school, in college. And that time I was like, okay, this is getting really weird.
It's about taking your power back, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I even did anything, I didn't do anything. I just felt bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened exactly. I don't really know what happened, how it happened. I don't know if maybe I had a spiritual protector that was mad that they were hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Because I didn't do anything. I just felt bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, it's interesting. I feel like there's a really cool witchy revival that we are in the middle of.
Yes, it's wonderful.
It's incredible, and it's
It
taken all
really is.
kinds of different forms. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, part of it is very, Instagrammy, happy witch
I like,
shit, but
yeah, aesthetic bath witches with their
yeah,
baths. And then there are
the bats.
those who are like collecting sticks and screaming in the woods.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I think it pisses off some witches and practitioners, but I don't, doesn't bother me. I feel like I feel like anything that normalizes witchcraft is
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah.
It's like when people started like doing more fantasy hair colors, and it became more mainstream, and like Lady Gaga and like other celebrities were like doing the hair, and then everybody started doing hair, and people that were like, old school manic panic diehards or whatever were like, oh no, it's not cool anymore. I'm like, it's livening up the world. Like, I
Yeah.
like to go out and see fun hair colors. Like, it just cheers up my day. Like, who cares if she's like a preppy girl who decided to dye her hair blue? Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely a witch revival going on, and it's really exciting, and
It is.
it's
Yeah.
it's really cool. So I guess you've been kind of like a solitary practitioner. You seem solitary.
Yes.
Solitary.
Yes, I am. If I wanted rules and judgment and other people kind of coming into my space, then I would have stayed with the church. But I'm not about that.
How did you find your path?
I'm trying to think about what was the moment, but I don't know the exact. I think it was like happening over like a long period of time where I was kind of looking for something. I didn't know what exactly, but like I was missing something. And so then I was like, I'm gonna just try out witchcraft just by myself, um, and see how it goes. And I started working with tarot. That was a really big part of it because I really felt like a connection with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I found out that I was really good at it, and I really found like some sort of like peace of mind from it.
Hmm.
And then I just started like doing like small things just every day to kind of like find my like center of peace. And I think that's really where it started to come together, and probably coming up with spells and combining that with poetry definitely helped.
Was there any literature that helped guide you at all?
Mm, there was um, there were a bunch of things that I read. Probably about the time with Shirley Jackson. Um,
Cool.
Reading her work was really a big part of like shaping myself in that way.
I love that. I'm very close to her house.
Oh, you are?
Hmm.
Exciting.
I'm about 40 minutes from Bennington here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I went and checked it out a few months ago. It was really cool. I wish it was a museum though. It sucks. It's just like a private residence, you know.
Oh, boo. Maybe someday.
You can't. Well, I mean, all her stuff's gone.
Oh,
Maybe it's somewhere else. I don't know, but I mean, it's
I
just
don't know.
a private residence. But it was still cool to see. I mean, I tried to not like hang out, you know, make whoever lived there uncomfortable or whatever. Um, but it was pretty cool. Um, and there's a tree on the
Mhm.
property, which I went over and touched because that's the thing I do now. Um, and I heard the words in my head, you have to break the bones to fix them, which I thought was pretty perfect and wonderfully cryptic.
Yeah, that sounds like her.
Yeah, so
Like,
that was cool. It's like a Bennington's a tiny little town. I mean, there's not much there. You know, it was like the house was like right a walk. It was right just a ways to the train station, which
mhm.
unfortunately is not in operation anymore. But it was a really cute train station, and the general store where she'd go because she didn't really go out that much, I guess. Um, but I recently read the Hangs a Man, because I saw the Shirley Jackson movie on Hulu, and you know, she was somebody I kept meaning to read and just kind of, I don't know. I'm a very slow, bad reader, I guess. I like to submerge myself in a book. I like to just like
Mhm.
sit all day, and honestly, my life does not allow that anymore. I can't just take a day to read a book. So then I just end up not reading. I don't want to just tease myself with a little bit, you know. So I watched that, and it got me really curious about Hangsman. So I read that, and then went over and visited. And it's weird because it deals with a mysterious disappearance that happened there, and that area, you know, it's labeled the Bennington Triangle, um, and it's this little area there where this trail where a lot
Mhm.
of people have disappeared, not just that girl that she wrote about, but even up till today, people keep disappearing from there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's extremely strange and intriguing, and I want to. I was actually planning something that got canceled this Halloween. Was going to go with some friends to walk the trail a little bit, but I'll have to wait for another time. But that's
Yeah.
we did go check it out though, and it was very witchy. Like the forest,
Nice.
they're
Yeah.
super witchy. I mean, Vermont woods are witchy anywhere you go. There's a lot of quartz, a lot of moss. Like it's very green, very lush. But this spot in particular felt very high energy and intense. Like as a witch, I felt like I'd walked into like a witch shop. Like it was all tools, that I
Yeah.
could use. So yeah, it's weird. It's a weird area.
Yeah.
Have you ever
I've
explored
never been there.
weird spots, other weird spots where things happened or anything?
I used to live in New Orleans. Um,
Oh, awesome.
that place, like the whole place is just, it's got vibes everywhere. I lived in Boston. Um, my apartment in Boston was definitely haunted. Um, but New Orleans in particular, like there was stuff everywhere. It just I moved there about 2 years after Katrina. So it was just it was really spooky when I got there. It was still being put back together after Katrina. And then it was just kind of empty, like people for a while. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that about New Orleans. I still haven't had a chance to go. I actually had signed up for a poetry festival last year that got canceled.
oh yeah.
Corona broke out. So I still haven't gone, but everybody that I've talked to that has been there has said the same thing, that it's just like heavy, heavy,
Yeah.
overwhelming, heavy vibes.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you go to where did you feel the most intense kind of energies there?
I mean, it's all over. The houses are old.
Mm-hmm.
They're still using the same streetcars that they used 100 years ago uh,
Wow.
on St. Charles. Yeah, it's like a lot of things haven't actually changed. Um, Not necessarily. A lot of what was originally there is still there. So it kind of feels like it's caught in time a little bit.
I love that. Savannah's
Yeah.
supposed to be like that too. I haven't been there. It seems kind of
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that.
I want to go to that graveyard where the
Yes.
Garden of Good and Evil or whatever, I forget what it's called. Bonaventure Cemetery.
Hmm. Oh, if you're in New Orleans, you should definitely go to St. Louis Cemetery number 1. Um, that was a very heavy, spooky place. It's just really old. And then all the crypts are above the ground. I used to love walking around the cemeteries in New Orleans. That was like my favorite place to go
Yeah,
because
that seems so
it's
perfect.
like different. They're like for families that are still in New Orleans. It's really
Yeah, I love that. They're so picturesque and they just
mhm.
seem very, I don't know, very,
Ornate.
and like weirdly alive almost. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. It's so weird because you think of death as like winter and barrenness, I guess. But like if you're in the South, it's going to be always, pretty lush.
Yeah.
So it's like you have death and you have life, like in equal measure in these cemeteries, these lush trees, like everything is. So that's really interesting. There's a cool cemetery um, 2 hours south of here, the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery.
Oh, nice.
That one's pretty cool. It's
Hmm.
it's interesting the way they used to do cemeteries versus how they do them now. They used to be a lot less practical, how they were
Hmm.
out and stuff. So this is very Victorian. It's very much like a sprawling garden, and there's all these ancient trees, there's all these hills, there's all these like little nooks and crannies and everything. Like it's a pain in the ass to mow. Like when I went there with a friend, we saw the guy like with the weed whacker. Like that's the only way to do it. So they have to literally go through just hand mowing the whole thing. There's no way to
Hmm.
like do a lawnmower. But it feels like a beautiful garden. Like it feels like a beautiful place to be. It's quite cheerful. Um, there's a lot of cool mausoleums too, which I love. Like they're like
Yeah.
houses, and the old Dutch church, of course.
Yeah. I used to go in Boston. There's the old granary burying ground. Um, and I always thought that was so cool because it's like right next to a college dorm. And so like there are people like living right over this like really old cemetery. Um, Loved walking through there. Like so weird that like all these famous people are there and they're just hanging out.
Like who's there?
I think Hancock was there. Or was it Philadelphia? I can't keep my graveyard straight. Um, Paul Revere,
Oh wow.
Boston people.
Yeah, so like big historical people.
Yeah, yeah.
I went to the I got to go to Paris and a few other places on my honeymoon a couple years
Hmm.
ago, and I went to the big, the really big one in Paris, the Père Lachaise Cemetery.
Yeah,
Like all the famous people are, and it's like the who's who of the artsy afterlife. Like Jim Morrison's there. That's the really famous one. But people like who is it? I think Proust is there. Um, Oscar Wilde is there.
hmm,
Georges Méliès, the like godfather of cinema, is there. It's huge. It's really huge. Like you need a whole day to walk through it because it's
yeah,
like a city. It's like a city of the dead. It truly is, and it's kind of got that, what I imagine, a bit of that New Orleans vibe of like just the lushness.
yeah, definitely. Because like out in Metairie, which is outside of New Orleans, they just it's like a necropolis. It's just all these above ground crypts, and it goes on for miles and miles, and it's pretty intense. They're all very like personalized and ornate, and it's just I got lost driving through it. Um, I wasn't even supposed to be there. It was so weird. It was like first thing in the morning. I dropped somebody off at the airport, and then the GPS started acting up, and I got stuck in the cemetery because
Wow.
I was following the GPS, and it took me in there by myself, like at 5 in the morning. It was so creepy. It's just like I don't know where I am or how to get out of this place. So I just kept driving. Eventually I got out, but it was really bizarre.
Somebody wanted you to be there.
Somebody wanted me to be there at 5 in the morning. It was like all the crypts, there was like mist all around them. And it
Oh,
felt like I stepped out of the world for a little bit.
that sounds so dreamy.
Yeah,
I find graveyards so relaxing. Do
I
you?
love them.
Yeah,
I really do.
I find them peaceful, I guess. I don't know. Why do you think you feel good in a graveyard? Why do you gravitate towards graveyards?
I don't know. I feel like it's almost like the world is thinner there. And maybe that's me just reading into it, but it feels like it's kind of separate. And I've always found peace around there.
Hmm.
Um, it's never been like scary exactly. It's just a place where I kind of feel super chilled out.
Yeah, I think I one of the reasons they make me feel good is because they do feel peaceful, but they also remind me that I'm alive. So I'll immediately, like when I'm around death of any kind, death imagery or death, um, I'll get like an actual like adrenaline jolt
Hmm.
or endorphins or something, and it'll just like hit me like, oh my God, you're not dead. You're alive. Like, this is crazy. You're like so alive. Like, we get so numb, you know? It's just,
Uh,
well, another day. Here we go. It's another day. This hurts. That sucks. Like, this is annoying. Like, we just dwell on everything negative and everything that is just, everything just kind of runs into each other. And then these moments that you're like, oh, wow, you know, holy shit, this is not permanent. This is, and it reminds me to really like savor it and really like really live.
That's lovely.
That's why I like graveyards, I think.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think that death is like scary, and that it's going to be really painful or like that's it. And I don't really think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think we do go on. I think we come back, but I don't think it's a scary thing necessarily. It's just you're moving on to the next thing.
Right. It's part of the process. I think
Yeah.
tough is, and probably why we have relied for so long on religions and religious leaders and guides and texts and whatnot, because it is so frightening and the uncertainty is so big.
Mm-hmm.
There really is no way to prove anything. A lot of people have had near death experiences where they see things and whatnot, and a lot of people have seen ghosts, and there's actually a lot of evidence that there is life after death, but there's nothing that you can like just empirically prove it, because none of our tracking devices for how we measure reality work in that realm.
Right.
So it's you have to kind of go a little bit on faith, or if you have supernatural experiences. I didn't, even after I started practicing more witchcraft, I had kind of a similar moment that you described where I felt like there was something missing. And I remembered how I used to experience reality as a child before I started school, and how like rich my inner life had been, and how I was surrounded constantly by friends, invisible friends, who I wonder now what they were. My parents were very cool about my imaginary friends, and I remember my dad would actually like, there were these three sisters that were like dressed like princesses, and they would fly around. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like around 3 or 4, like really young, and but I was really excited to see them. And my dad would actually take me. They only were at a certain spot. They were at the park near my house. So my dad would actually take me there to play with my imaginary friends, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But I never thought it was anything. Uh, they were anything but imaginary until I started having encounters later on. But even when I began on the path, I started, doing crystals, tarot, stuff like that, trying to just feel something. And I remember buying all these crystals and just holding them and waiting to feel something,
Yeah.
I'll feel it any day now. I'm going to feel something.
It's gonna work. It's gonna work.
And eventually I did feel something.
Yeah.
But I was pretty hell bent, so I stayed on it, even though I wasn't sure how much of it was real or not, and I couldn't really tell, But it felt right. It felt like I was going in the right direction. But then I actually had some encounters, and then it changed. It flipped my whole entire worldview, and yeah, it's I forgot where I was going with all this. It's all the whole existence thing. So what have you thought about, like past lives or any of that? Have you felt like you
I'm pretty sure I've had past lives. I have always had like really vivid dreams of myself being burned at the stake,
wow,
set on fire. So I'm pretty positive because I've always had those dreams. Um, like just really vivid, like what happened leading up to that, and then just I'm burned at the stake, and then like I kind of fade out, and then I'd wake up. Um,
wow.
yeah.
Do you I don't even know what to ask. I have so many like things in my head. it's interesting when I first read Sylvie Plath's Ariel, actually,
Mhm.
I started getting visions of myself burned at the stake, and I wrote a poem about it. Um, I think the first things that I noticed that were strange were uh, so I grew up in Mexico and we moved to the States when I was around 12, and I wasn't
Mhm.
really around many old things when we lived there, and we moved to the suburbs of Chicago, and there's in most places in the States, there's always like thrift stores and antique furniture stores and all that kind of stuff, which I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And for the first time around like 12, 13, when I started going into these places, it was just such an intense feeling that I felt towards the furniture. I felt very drawn to like Victorian era furniture, and it felt very homey and really nice, and I just wanted to touch it and sit in it, and it just felt so good, to the point that I went through like like a whole year where I was basically in that time period in my head. And
Mhm.
I actually volunteered at a reenactment little village nearby. Um, and I was a tour guide at one of the houses, just so I could be in the house, spend time in the house, spend time dressed in period costume, and just be there. And I remember how frustrating the experience was, because it was like it was fun in that way, but it was just like I didn't want to like tour guide people. Like I wanted to just live there. I wanted to be able to,
Yeah.
and there were areas roped off and stuff. I just wanted to like sit in the parlor and like have guests over and have tea. Like that was like my big fantasy at the time. And like I was just felt so good wearing gloves. And I've gone back and like looked at my diary at the time. It's so weird. Like I swear to, it just seems like a whole different person. Like I'm like obsessed with my outfits. I'm like I have to wear white dresses. I have to wear gloves.
Mhm.
I have to go out with a parasol. Like it was a whole different voice, a whole different person. And I eventually slipped out of it, but um, that era has always appealed to me a lot. Um,
Loved Victorian era. It's I feel like I was definitely there at one point, but
where do you think you are in your cycle? Like,
according to Palm Reader, I'm at least 11 in because I've got like all these crosses like on my hands. So
so do you think you're like halfway through or what? Like,
I'd hope that's like halfway through, at least
yeah.
halfway through.
It's so interesting when I meet people that like you can really tell when somebody is at the beginning. I can tell when people are at the beginning or the end.
Yeah.
I can tell that like right away if somebody is like a brand new soul and they're like still kind of getting the hang of the whole mortal experience. It's all kind of pretty baffling still for them, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
trying to like, figure out how to be in a body and like just do normal things. And then like I've met people that are just like tired. They're just tired
Yeah.
because they've done this so many times, and it's just been lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes.
Yeah. Like even when I was a kid, my mom was like, "You seemed like an old person." And I'm like, I'm pretty positive I've done this before.
It's funny, when I was born, my parents said we got an older baby. I don't think they meant it that way, it's because I had like a full head of hair, but
Oh, okay.
very alert, like extremely alert.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's interesting they said that. So I feel like we could talk forever, but I don't want to go like crazy long. Let me see where we're at here. Um, Yeah, we're at about an hour, which is
Okay.
pretty good time. So
Mhm.
um, let's loop back to the book. Is there anything you want to say about it?
I don't know that there's anything that hasn't already been said.
I love that the cover is a you came up with some of the aesthetic things that you wanted for the cover. You wanted some kind of like, I forget what you said, but
Mortuary chic. And
yeah, yeah,
Olivia delivered.
yeah, she totally did. I love the burials part where it's like
Yes,
literally like
that was perfect.
headstone. So beautiful.
Hmm.
It's got kind of this, and the hair, even the windswept hair, like it's
Yeah, it's so funny because this was the color I had my hair dyed when I was writing this book.
really.
Exact color. So like every time I see this, I'm like, this is me as a zombie.
I love it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a lily, or what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We talked about that though.
yeah, that's like a death flower, right?
Definitely.
So this has been really cool. I,
Yeah, it was fun.
I want to hear more about all your weird experiences at some other time.
Yeah.
I,
Anytime.
I love that. I love exploring places. Like literally, if my
Yeah.
dream life, if I could just do it, would be to just literally just travel around and look for weird sites where strange
Yeah.
things happened and places that are haunted. Have drinks in haunted hotels and stuff, and just explore all of that because I can feel the energies. Like you don't always know what exactly you're feeling. It's not like you're like, oh, there's a ghost, I see it. Oh, this exactly happened here. But like
Yeah. And then like explaining to people that you can't always see it with your eyes, but you like see it with your mind.
right, right.
Yeah.
When you're saying I saw, it's not
I saw it.
literal saw or I heard. You're
Hmm.
hearing it like in your inner ear, but
Yeah.
and it's interesting what you said about channeling different voices, like how that one poem felt different than your other poems. Um, I literally just started this cool workshop. We did the first session. It's going all month. And it's a class idea I came up with of spirits conjuring writing workshop. So I
Oh, that's cool.
came up with these exercises to help everybody. Not everybody's channeling spirits. Some people are just doing like, gods or different things. Um, but the exercises are already yielding some very interesting results for different people, and different people are having interesting experiences. Um, and that is like one of the things that I told them, because so the first assignment, it was to write a letter to the spirit and,
Hmm.
introduce yourself, say what you want. The goal is that they will help you write something, to work in partnership with them. So first you write a letter, then the second assignment is an incantation, and we're actually doing our seance. Basically, we're doing a Zoom seance, just like the movie. um, Sunday, where we will be conjuring. And then the next assignment is automatic writing. So that is where they will surrender themselves to the
Hmm.
spirit to just write through them and not censor themselves at all. So then the goal is that the final assignment, whatever the writing project is, they will do it in the ritual space where they have welcomed the spirit, and it will be involved in writing whatever they're writing. So um, that is literally what I said to them. Like, you will know when it's not you talking, because
Yeah.
it's not gonna. It might be in a different voice, but it might not be. It might just be a different phrasing style, a different cadence. It would just be saying things that you wouldn't be saying, and that's how you know.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Maybe I should have you come speak to them or something.
I'd love to.
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe at the end of the class. That might
Yeah.
be.
Let me know.
Okay. So where would you like people to follow your work or your?
Um, you can follow me on Twitter at I am Badwitch, Instagram at I am Badwitch13. Um, that's pretty much where I post. Or you can check out jessicadrakethomas.com. And just, yeah,
Yeah, and check out our book. You can get it anywhere.
burials.
And I'm psyched to see what your next project is. Is it poetry or is it prose?
I'm working on a book of poetry. I'm also writing a novel that is going very slowly, but
As they tend to.
it's going forward. I think with 2020, it's just, I'm trying to focus on keeping myself together. um,
Has it been hard to focus on writing?
it's been hard to focus on a lot. It's just, I think I'm just worn out with everything that's going on.
Are you just like feeling all the psychic stress in the air?
Yes, there's that. I started a PhD program and a job, so like keeping everything going has been really exhausting.
How do you keep yourself inspired with everything that you're doing and all the distractions?
I make sure to like make time for what interests me, because once I make time for what interests me, then just the poems come naturally. So
So like watching true crime or
yes, absolutely, 100%. Reading tarot, just taking moments to do something that gives me that something extra. Um,
I think it's so important in any time, but
mhm.
especially in such times of flux and chaos as we are now. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people are struggling a lot with that.
Yeah, definitely. Like prioritizing rest, and then just taking moments to focus on something that really matters to you is that's how I keep myself sane.
Do you have a method for putting yourself in a state of rest?
Um, I mean, it's as easy as just turning off the computer, turning off the phone, and then just taking a moment to just breathe or just sit down and read for a bit. Um, Read the tarot cards. Just taking a moment to like focus on something that isn't work. Because to be honest, poetry isn't really work for me. It's something that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I love that. I think it translates. I think reading that out loud was so fun. It's just like
yeah.
an adventure almost.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates this cool mental picture in the mind.
Yeah.
It's an escape, even though it's dealing with so much darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Still this fun escape.
It's a feeling that I was trying to evoke. Like when I sat down, it wasn't necessarily that I was going for like true crime and corpses and stuff. There was a feeling that I sat down and started out with, and that's what I was going for. Um, and I did it. Like
What's the feeling? How would you describe
I, I don't even like. It's almost like melancholy, but like kind of elusive, ethereal feeling that I sometimes get. And that's what I was going for. And I figured out how to write it. Um,
There's a bit of sass too. There's a bit of
yes, there is.
It reminds me a little bit, I probably say this a lot to people, oh, this reminds me of Plath. I, I think about Plath too much, but it does remind me of Plath. It does remind me
I've been called post-Plath since before I read her. My professor was like, "Oh, you're post-Plath," and I said, "I've never read her before." He was like, "You oughta."
my
So,
teacher did that. I had a poetry teacher too that said that to me. He didn't say it was post-Plath, but he told me that I should really, really read her, that I would really
mhm.
like, it would really like speak to me.
Yeah,
Um, it's interesting how she lives on, you know, it's almost like
yeah,
she gets stronger
mhm.
as the longer she's dead, the stronger she gets in people's minds, and the more her writing influences writers. She has this power, and it's funny. I felt when I read Ariel, I felt like it was this weird sort of almost like a Revenant voice, like
Mhm.
she's already dead and already like a vengeful, like returning spirit. And you have a little bit of that here. You have actual, like, you know, dead people talking.
Yeah.
So that's fun. All right, so we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Follow Jessica, check out her Instagram, and read her book if you like this sort of thing. It's really fun, and it's pretty quick read. You read it in like an hour thereabouts, and it's fun to just like, you know, just pick a poem, just randomly pick a poem and just read it. And that's the fun thing about poetry collections, is you can just pick it up and put it down, pick it up and put it down, just have it around. I mean, it's just so pretty. Just put it on your table and look cool for your friends. um, all right. So thank you for coming on. This has been really
Yeah. Thanks
cool,
for
really
having me.
um, making me want to explore when I can't. I'm like, I really need to get to New Orleans
Ew, it's so much fun.
as soon as the world isn't dying. I'll go.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.